afternoon. In terms of our keynote here, we've got State Representative Jay Edwards with us, and he's going to share some of his experience, not only from a local perspective, but as he's been involved with the state legislature. So representing the 94th District, which includes Athens, Meigs, Morgan counties, and part of Washington County, Representative Edwards has been the chairman of the House Finance Committee, which is one of the things that is super interesting that I've asked him to comment on, because that state budget and how we get things is always one of those big kind of black box things that I'm trying to understand further in terms of how that goes into not only the operating and the capital budget, but how can we ask for things that we need for our local communities. Born and raised in Nelsonville, attended Ohio University with a football scholarship and a degree in mathematics. Representative Edwards has not only been part of local government, but also invested in the business community through local real estate, as well as representing buyers and sellers in the area from an investment perspective. So recently, Representative Edwards began working in medical sales with the drug abuse treatment market and understanding more about addiction and health. So join me in welcoming Senator Jay Edwards.
Is it okay if I hold this mic? Okay, thank you. And I'm representative, not senator. I get that a lot though, but it's all right. Yeah, he said senator. It's okay. Yeah, we're in the bigger chamber. We like to be biased towards the House, not the Senate. But really appreciate you having me. I think Grid's been a great program. Really appreciate Grid. I want to throw a shout out before I get started. And just to be frank, I'm going to try to be quick. I like to leave more time for Q&A and questions of where the mind is of the audience rather than me rambling on up here as a politician, telling you everything that's going on. I'd rather hear what kind of questions we have around the room. Won't say I have great answers for everyone, or I might not have answers at all, but I'd love to hear from people and just greatly appreciate it. I know we got people from all the way of Ashtabula County, all the way to Southwest Ohio and the Appalachian region that have came here today. So really appreciate you being here. It's a big step into talking, joining Grid, joining the people, the networking that takes place. It's just a great thing. Before I get started, I want to give a shout out to the people filming, who I got the mic on here. Move to Go, Jeff Totten's in the back of the room holding the camera. They do a great job, him and his staff, and they're doing great work with kids over in Belpre. They highlight athletics, they highlight community events, and just want to give a shout out to Jeff and what he does for Belpre, for Southeast Ohio, for the entire region, and really appreciate you being here to bring some more publicity to this very important event. So I want to give a thank you. How about a round of applause for Jeff? So I'm going to dive in a little bit to my background. I'm going to talk a little bit about work in the legislature, and I don't really have anything written down. I got like 4 bullet points written down, so I kind of just ramble on. And again, I'm going to try to leave a lot of time for questions and answers. But as previously mentioned, I grew up in Nelsonville on the northern end of Athens County. I always like to say I grew up kind of Appalachian spoiled. Not because I was given anything, but because I had a mother and father in my house that loved me, they cared for me, they made sure I had food on my plate every night, and occasionally when I got out of line, I got a kick in the rear end as I needed. And you know, we all know, and we all grown up here, we know a lot of kids that we represent, a lot of people we represent don't have those same luxuries in life. They're struggling to get by, and people are struggling here, especially in the Appalachian region, really all over the state, all over the country. And so very fortunate to grow up in the household I grew up in, kind of laid the foundation for everything I've done in my life. Was able to, sports was a big part of my life. Was able to find passion in sports. Got a football scholarship to play at Ohio University. Got to play linebacker there for 4 years under Frank Solich. My defensive coordinator was a guy named Jimmy Burrow. You might know his son. He's a little famous right down the road here that plays big time on Sundays. So very appreciative that I know we all are from Appalachia. Very, very, very appreciative of Joe Burrow and everything he's done for food insecurity here in the region, and just so proud to not just be representing the area where he's from, but really all of us in Appalachia should be so proud of the stage and the spotlight that Joe Burrow's and the fact that he's an Appalachian boy that grew up here. So with that, I got out of college, got into real estate, got into medical sales, still work a little bit in the medical sales world and real estate. And I was probably 26 years old, and I was approached by someone locally, one of these ex-politicians that talked me into running. And at the time, when they approached me, I thought, "Man, I'm way too young. I don't have enough life experience. Why would I do that?" Kind of told him no for a little while. And he persevered and kept bugging me. And then finally, on the filing deadline to actually run, I filed on the very last day you could run in 2015. It would have been December of 2015 to run. And spent the whole year in 2016 running. And to be honest with you, I really, the foundation for why I chose to run is I love where I'm from. I love Appalachia. I wear it on my sleeve every day. I love the people. I've seen the struggles. I've gone to school with people in the struggles. I've seen the people that you know, the kids that I went to school with that were great kids that fell prey to the opioid crisis, that I knew were good kids, that needed good foundation, that needed solid support, and obviously we need more of that. And so I had a passion for helping people. It was really my motto for why I ran. I didn't realize how crazy politics was going to come for 2016. And I'm here to tell you that, you know, regardless of what you see on the federal level, state politics is really a bipartisan sport. We do a lot of things. I'd say 95% of the bills we pass are very bipartisan. It's not what you see on TV. It's not this constant bickering between Republican and Democrat. Quite frankly, I'll give a shout out to our Appalachian legislators. We have great representatives, both the Senate and the House, of people representing Appalachia. They're common sense people that want to get to the root of the problem. They don't care what your partisan affiliation is. They don't care what you stand for, what you disagree upon. They really want to help people, and we're so fortunate to have representatives and senators representing us at the state level that really want to get things done. I think they understand the issues that we face. So that being said, I get to the legislature, you know, no one thought I was going to win. I had a chance to win. I got there and spent the majority of my time in my first few years you know, learning the place, learning how to get stuff done, really trying to dive in and build relationships. It's my favorite part of the job is coming to events like this, meeting people, building relationships, and finding out what needs to be worked on. I've seen some people in the room I've already said hi to. You know, I can tell you that the legislators in Appalachia, and including myself, none of the ideas, there are some people that get elected and they think they're the smartest people in the world. We all know some of those people. I don't think I'm those people. I don't think our Appalachian legislators are those people. We take direction from the people with the boots on the ground. We talk to you. Our ideas come from you. If you're sitting out there and don't have a relationship with your state representative, your state senator, I suggest you invite them in, have them learn about what you do. If you have ideas for legislation, I'll be around after this, would love to hear it. Everything I've worked on in the State House has came from a constituent that had an idea or a problem that we wanted to work on. So fast forward, this past election cycle, we were very fortunate to get a Speaker of the Ohio House. His wife's in the room, Julie, back there. Speaker Stevens from right here in Lawrence County. And it just helps to have a Speaker of the House that's from Appalachia. It really helps. And Jason Stevens does an absolute wonderful job of wearing Appalachia on his sleeve every day, wearing Lawrence County on his sleeve every day. And it's so fortunate to be the finance chair. He named me the finance chair at the beginning of the last budget cycle in January of last year, so almost a year and a couple months ago. And so fortunate for him and I to be able to work together because budgets are about priorities. And government is really about priorities. You don't have enough time in the day to work on every single issue. It's about what you're prioritizing and what you're going to try to do to make the most difference. I'm going to run through here in just a little bit about some of the budget priorities that we put forward, including supporting the GRIT program here in Ohio, here in Appalachia, and who put this on today. But there's a lot of great things that I don't think people are even aware of that we prioritized in our budget and put money to. That's a big deal. Now, my ongoing joke is, number one, I was one of the youngest chairmen of the Finance Committee that we've had in a very, very long time, and my ranking member, Brad Sweeney, Democrat from Cleveland, is my age or maybe a little bit younger. So for us two to be, you know, usually you're talking about 80-year-old men that are chairing the Finance Committee. Our ongoing joke was we were going to take all the state funds and invest them in like Bitcoin or something. But you know, we were able to. I think it was quite refreshing to have kind of two young people. I know I'm biased because I'm a younger guy, but two young people in the room that really get it. They don't care about partisan politics, and they really just want to care for people. And it made for a great budget cycle, especially in the House. And I think we ended up with one of the best budgets. My other joke is, if any of you ever are going to run for office and want to be the finance chair for the state of Ohio, always do it in a year where the state's got a lot of money. It really helps. You know, fortunately this year we had a lot of federal COVID dollars, and a lot of extra money that we could put towards priorities. And it wasn't just about throwing money around lackadaisical. It wasn't about putting money towards stuff that wasn't going to make a difference or an impact in people's lives. And when I go through some of these budget highlights, you're going to hear there are things that are common sense things that haven't been done in a long time in the state of Ohio that we were able to do that I think is really surprising, but it's also common sense for especially the people in the area that we're representing. One of the first things I learned when I got to Columbus, and I went around, I made it a point, again, no one thought I was going to win, so I was kind of a surprise that I won in 2016. I took office in January 2017. One of the first things I did was travel to every legislator's office, meet with every legislator, and it was something that I was surprised hadn't been done. You should have saw some of these Democrat people that I'd walk in, members that I'd walk in their office and they'd say, this never happens. And one of the coalitions that I kind of have built on around the state is we tried to build the Appalachian Caucus, so the Appalachian Caucus is all working together as opposed to fighting against each other. We have a great representative, Don Jones, who chairs the Appalachian delegation. I kind of got that off the ground when I first started and handed that over to Don. Too often, Franklin County's got 12 or 13 people representing them. Too often, they get a lot more because they're all working together, but yet we're down here all working against each other. So it's very important we got the Appalachian Caucus done. But one of the other things that really stuck out to me when I started meeting with especially Democrat members from urban areas, I built a really close relationship with the Legislative Black Caucus. And when you think about the issues that we face in Appalachia and the issues in the urban areas of our state, from drug abuse, from low opportunities, from generational issues, from single-family households, to access to care, to public transit, all the things we deal with on a daily basis, they're dealing with the exact same things. So we built coalitions, and it really helps. I think it's important. You probably experience this in your day-to-day work. You build coalitions with people, it really helps you get stuff done. I think the reason we've been so successful is the realization that, we might be a different skin color, we might be from different areas of the state, we might be different politics, but in reality, we're all working together to try to help people, which I know is what you guys do every day. So I'm going to run through a couple budget highlights. I might stop at a couple as we're going through and kind of explain them. Hopefully this doesn't get boring. I'll try to be quick. And then I want to open it up and kind of hear from the audience and hear about questions that we're all wondering or want to ask. And feel free to ask whatever you want, whether it's about politics, whether it's about issues. I want to hear from you. I can't say I'm going to have the right answers or even an answer, but we definitely want to hear from you and hear what's going on. So one of the big things that we did in the budget is education. I said the state always does four things. We transportate, we incarcerate, we run the state prisons. We medicate, we run the Medicaid program, and we educate. We run the K-12 and higher education and technical schools. So one of the biggest points of our budget was the education plan. We started a couple years ago implementing a fair school funding plan. We all know the constitutional issues we've had in education in the state of Ohio with being overly reliant on property taxes. Last budget cycle, we were able to start the fair school funding plan. We continued that fair school funding plan while also making sure the teachers are paid fairly. One of the things that hadn't been done in 16 years prior to my time in the legislature was making sure teachers have a minimum salary. So just one person, I'll point at somebody. Jen, you're sitting in front row, so I'll pick on you. What do you think the minimum teacher salary was prior to us changing it in the state of Ohio? Minimum. It was $20,000. It is so hard to, if we're going to value education and all forms of education, how can you have a teacher making $20,000? It really just shows that you're not valuing the teacher. You can put as much money into that school as you want without valuing the teacher. So we were able to raise that. It wasn't as high as what we wanted, but we raised that to $35,000. But again, that changes the pay scale for everyone up the totem pole. So these little things that most people aren't aware of were big parts of this budget and big parts of things we were able to do. We changed the Department of Education in Ohio. Now the Department of Education is the Department of Education and Workforce. We are trying to tie education and workforce. That is the goal for what we're doing in education. We all know we have a workforce shortage out there. Any employer you talk to will tell you they're looking for people, not just people people that can pass a drug test, people that are willing to work, people that are willing to show up, people that have transit to get to and from work, and people that are qualified. I talk to employers every day that are willing to pay a little bit more, offer a little bit more benefits. They're willing to take someone underqualified as long as they can get them training and get them in, but they need reliable people, and I know that's something you guys are working on every day. One of the other things, feel-good things that we were able to do in the budget is we have, in Ohio, we have a free and reduced lunch program. It's a big stigma to kids, especially on the reduced lunch, to go in and they're only able to pay, if lunch is $5, they're reduced a certain amount. We were able to take the reduced lunch program and make it 100% free. So there is no more reduced lunch. If you qualify for a reduced lunch at all, it is a free lunch for kids. We tried to make it free lunches across the board. We didn't win on that, but we thought that was very important. Growing up in sports was very important to me. One of the other small provisions in the budget is we're making coaches, and I love coaches. I'm not trying to put any more burden on coaches. We have some coaches in the room, but we're making sure that coaches, to be qualified to coach teams in high school sports, you got to have mental health training. We all know mental health is the epidemic of our life right now. We need more coaches. We need more mental health counselors in our schools. We know that. We're trying to work on that. We think it is a small step to make sure coaches are qualified in mental health, at least have some sort of training to do that. In the higher ed space, we expanded OCOG, the Ohio College Opportunity Grant, which just really helps Appalachia and the urban areas. It's the biggest needs-based financial aid program that the state of Ohio has. It's so important. We all know people in need that want to go to college. Cost is a big barrier. We expanded that, try to allow more kids, especially from Appalachia, to do that. We're requiring financial literacy in our schools and higher education now. We all know financial literacy is something that's been an afterthought. We think this is very important. And our workforce development, which I know a lot of people in this room care a lot about, we put $300 million in career tech facilities, making sure our career technical schools. Up in Nelsonville, I go to Tri-County Vocational School. I don't know if anybody's here from Tri-County. No. I'm going to yell at them for that. But $300 million, that money went away so fast that we've spent it already in new programs, updating programs, building infrastructure at these vocational schools, at these career tech schools, and it's so important. We put millions of dollars into the Super Rapids program, which I'm sure most people in the room are very aware of, to increase specialized skills for high-demand jobs. If you're not aware of it, you should be aware of it. One of the other really interesting areas that as we travel around the state and we talk to folks like Intel and Honda and some of the big employers, but even some of the small employers, of a barrier to workforce right now is housing. Workforce housing is a big problem right now, and it's something that when I got in the legislature, you never heard the business groups, the Chamber of Commerce, the Ohio Business Roundtable, ever talking about housing or childcare. And all of a sudden now, I think they realize maybe post-COVID how important workforce housing and childcare is and how big of a barrier it is to our workforce. We put $100 million into workforce housing, into tax credit programs that we thought was very important. We put $16 million in child infrastructure programs. It was a big deal. We learned through the budget process that not only do we have a lack of teachers, when you talk about the ratios they need in child care programs, we actually have a really long line of kids wanting to get into daycare programs. And so before we put money specifically into the facilities, we thought it was important to put money into building new facilities to cut down on the line that we currently have. We were able to put $750 million into the All Ohio Future Fund. All Ohio Future Fund is for future site development. I'm sure Bill Dingus is very familiar with the All Ohio Future Fund. It's getting ready to roll out here real soon. This is for site development in your local communities. This is for the perfect facility that is missing that gas line, it's missing that water line, it's missing that sewer line, three-phase electric, whatever we need. This is really for sites outside the Columbus, Cleveland, Cincinnati area, specific maybe to Appalachia and Northwest Ohio. How do we get our site development to create more jobs here in this region? $500 million towards brownfield and demolition. I know that's been a very successful program. As I mentioned, we put a bunch of money into child infrastructure and early childhood education, which in reality, housing and child care, again, I know I already talked about it once, it really is a big problem that the state has to address. We need more housing here, workforce housing here in Appalachia. We need more child care facilities. I think every kid in the state of Ohio, by the time they show up at 4 or 5 years old into a school, when they haven't had a structured environment in their entire life, it's too late. We need kids in programs as early as a couple months, 6, 7, 8 months old. We need to have them getting into facilities, getting into structured environments. we will pay dividends. In Ohio, we have term limits. It's really hard for people to see outside 8 years. These type of things that we've done on childcare and housing are things, they're plants that we've seeded. We might not see for a long time, wait till I'm out of office, but they're so important, and a lot of times they're things that are overlooked. We created a new program in the state, a new department, similar to what we did with education. We created the Department of Children and Youth in the state of Ohio, specifically to look at, previously children and youth was kind of would be under Ohio Medicaid or JFS. Now we have a Department of Youth that's going to be completely focused on children across the state of Ohio. We expanded SNAP benefits for foods. We did continuous Medicaid coverage for children 0 to 3. Previous to this budget cycle, when a child, every year of a child's life between 0 and 3 had to reapply for Medicaid eligibility. Now between 0 and 3, they don't have to reapply. So we're getting government out of the way of kids in need. Expanded the 988 mental health services. Is a big product for the state of Ohio to make sure we have mental health services in the 988 space. We expanded Medicaid for ambulatory assisted living, dental. I don't know if Merriman people are familiar with this in your local areas. We hardly have any dentists in the Appalachian region or in high Medicaid populations that accept Medicaid. I just talked to a dentist actually yesterday in Columbus that told me he's so thankful he's actually accepting Medicaid patients now because of the increased reimbursement. When you're talking about someone's teeth and their oral hygiene and their oral health, how do you expect someone to go get a job if they don't have proper oral health or proper teeth? These sorts of things might seem like they're small. They're very big things for trying to help our workforce shortage here in the state of Ohio. Expanded things for vision care, allowing Medicaid. I talked to an eye doctor in Athens. They're seeing more Medicaid patients, a higher population, because we expanded Medicaid reimbursements for them. And then, because we're here with the GRIP program today, we were able to give $9.5 million to the GRIP program in our budget. We're very happy about that. And then just 2 weeks ago, we had our one-time strategic fund. So part of the budget too is we had a bunch of extra cash laying around, which is a good problem to have. So we kind of put that money aside of the $700 million for one-time strategic fund asks. And the House passed that a couple weeks ago. I'm sure there are members in here that are aware of some local projects in your district that came from that. We thought it was very important, and we're going to be allocating more funds in the capital budget coming up. We were able to get the GRIP program in the operating budget, $9.5 million, and then an additional $3 million for a sanctuary in the one-time strategic fund. So big supporters of GRIP and everything they do. Absolutely, yeah, round of applause. And then, there are a couple other things. We put a bunch of money, hundreds of millions of dollars into the Rural Road program to try to help people. We all know we have people that love our way of life in Appalachia, but sometimes they're traveling to and from work to workforce centers. We're going to have people in this region that are traveling all the way to Newark, Ohio to work at Intel. They don't want to live in Newark. They don't want to live in Lincoln County. They don't want to live in Columbus. They love Appalachia. They love their way of life. How do we get people from point A to point B faster? We put money into rural roads and rural highways. And it was a big product of the Speaker of the House, and we're very proud of that. I know right here locally the Chesapeake bypass is going to get finished. We're working on the MEGs, the Route 33 from Athens County all the way to Ravenswood, West Virginia, making that 4-lane. It's a public safety issue and it's a workforce issue, getting people from point A to point B. Bill Dingus actually serves on our track board for ODOT. I want to thank Bill for all the work he's done. We'll give a round of applause for Bill Dingus. He's our representative on there, and he's biased towards Appalachia too, and he helps us down here get those projects complete on the track project. Thank you for everything you do, Bill. So with that being said, one of the best parts of my life and of my job is getting to go around to events like this, getting to meet people, getting to meet business owners all over the state of Ohio, and it's usually all about money. It's what most, especially when you're in the finance chair, people are asking for money and funding for their projects. That all projects are worthy. And so, I was sitting at my house a couple years ago and got a call from Cleveland of a guy, an older guy, answered the phone and, hey, Representative Edwards, I'd love for you to come to Cleveland and meet with me. I want to do a project in Appalachia. And I'm sitting here wondering, what in the world are we talking about? A guy in Cleveland, a multi-millionaire, maybe billionaire from Cleveland, a Jewish guy, wants to work on projects in Appalachia. I'm scratching my head a little bit thinking, man, this doesn't make a lot of sense. and drove up to Appalachia and met an unbelievable man at 94 years old today, still functioning at such a high level in his mental capacity. A guy by the name of Albert Ratner started the GRIT program, and I'm here to tell you, you might not know him, you may have heard of his name. The guy truly does not have a financial motive, which is uncommon in the line of work that we're in. He has no financial motive for what he's doing and the amount of money he's investing. He told me point blank, he's working on projects, the GRIT program, not just in Ohio, but in surrounding states. And I asked him specifically, why does a billionaire from Cleveland care about Appalachia? And he said, a rising boat rises all tides. And if we don't care about Appalachia, we're not caring about the state of Ohio, we're caring about this region of the state. So I just want to thank Albert Ratner. If you don't know him, if you ever get a chance to meet him, he's an unbelievable man, again, 94 years old. He sits at the edge of his seat in every meeting I'm ever in. He asks all the right questions. I can only hope to be as there as he is at 94. And he's an amazing man, and I want to thank Albert and Christy that works for him. Just so happy for everything he's done and the ability to get GRIT to Southeast Ohio. So with that, I'll open it up to questions, and you guys can ask whatever you want. Does anybody have any questions? I don't think we have wireless mics here. You just got to stand up and shout. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Dr. Shannon Smith, and I'm curious, are you investing in Bitcoin?
No. No. Are you?
Very interested in the technology, blockchain technology behind it. I don't know how you
I think the blockchain is definitely a value. I saw where Bitcoin hit 60,000, I think, yesterday. 63, you know all about it, you must be invested. But I am not invested in Bitcoin. I have other investments, but I'm not in Bitcoin. It's always kind of scared me.
I think of it as investment. I think of it as transparency of money.
Absolutely.
Along the lines of free exchange.
I can tell you I'm fascinated with it. I've looked into it. I'm kind of late to the ballgame now, 63,000. I think it's, yes, I think it's definitely, well, it's good to hear. I think it's definitely a worthwhile investment and something that is going to be very interesting for the future of the financial world in the United States, really.
As well as the government entity.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yep. Any other questions? You can ask whatever you want. Someone's got it. All right.
So with the Department of Education and Workforce Development providing like you said, is that going to have any impact on the Ohio Adult Employment Program or the 22 Plus programs that are throughout the state?
I believe they will encompass all of that. So they're looking at that right now. We actually have a funding problem over at that Department of Education and Workforce right now that we're trying to address in the State House right now. There were some money issues when that all transferred over. So I'll check on that and I'll try to get your contact information, but I'm pretty sure they are encompassing that, and it should just run as smoothly as it's always ran. Yep. Come on, somebody's got to have a question. You see somebody back there, Jen? Denise?
Yeah. So, I just want to make an observation and get your opinion on this, and I think the room, I hope I'm representing your voice, but, as we're looking at broadband, that's been a real, we've got a lot of money in the state, a lot of things are happening, but most of the conversation is still happening in pockets across Appalachia. In other words, the group that represents the western portion of Appalachia is actually in Cincinnati.
Yes.
The group that represents the eastern part is over in Athens. The other group is up in Youngstown. If you land in between either of those two areas, of those three areas, you're still not in the conversation. And so those also have to be our areas that have the most desperate need for that broadband. So as the state thinks about how we get the voice of the people, is there any attempt to say, hey, every time we do it, we're not going to just follow that 5 districts? Because there's this whole other area of Appalachia in the southwest and in the kind of central east. They get missed out. Their
Yes.
voices are not getting heard. We're trying to get them to the table, but is this something the legislators can help with?
Absolutely. And we've invested hundreds of millions of dollars in broadband. We've been some people have been very upset with where that broadband money has been invested. And I can tell you it's a complex topic, and I'll take it a step further in a minute. Some people might not like to hear this, but I'll just give you my opinion of where it should go. We're actually in the process right now. We just received about $800 to $900 million of BEAD funding from the federal government that's going to be specific to broadband. Broadband Ohio, which was started under Governor DeWine, is going to be implementing that similar to how they did last time, but trying to change it to fix some of the problems that you just brought up. And there's a problem. You know, you got some people, you know, fiber optic is kind of the name of the game in broadband. And when the government's investing its own money or taxpayer money into these programs, you would think they would want to be investing in tomorrow's technology, not yesterday's technology. However, there are certain areas of the state that fixed wireless works, and you're never going to get fiber optic. I can tell you it's very complex. Broadband has become such a political hot topic. Everyone wants broadband. Everyone needs broadband. You can't live in today's society, whether it's medicine, whether it's your work, whether it's going to school, education, whether it's research, trying to educate, research, schoolwork, all these sorts of things. You can't do it without broadband. And so there's a big fight. The other fight that we have, the other issue with broadband that we don't, you can look at a map and see areas that don't have broadband. It's very expensive to get them out in these areas. And also, it's the affordability. It's not just about access. It's about, even if it's running by someone's house, do they have the ability to pay $40 or $50 or $60 or $70 or $80 a month to get that broadband? So you can run it by people's houses. That's great. But are they actually going to be able to afford that? So I'll take it a step further, and this is, big picture things that I'm not going to be around for, but I hope someone takes advantage of. When you're talking about electric and water and sewer and some of these issues, there are all kinds of programs for people that are living below the poverty line to help them pay for that, because it is a requirement for a house. Broadband should be considered a public utility in the state of Ohio. If it was considered a public utility, you could have some of those things. And in today's day and age, it's a requirement for all houses to have broadband, and quite frankly, we're doing a disservice to people by not allowing it. If you can run electric to everyone's house, you can run broadband to everyone's house. We just got to reclassify it as a public utility, and I think a lot of our issues will be solved.
Right.
The broadband companies don't like it when I say that, and that's fine, but that's what it should be. Yeah, Jen?
So with housing as a priority, and I think all of us can agree, housing is an emergent issue, and you'd be working with other Appalachian legislators, what's the conversation around making sure we don't get a one-size-fits-all kind of strategy to housing development?
Yes.
That also kind of doesn't, because that doesn't translate well to Appalachia, like we've seen in a lot of.
Yeah, so all the housing runs through an organization called OFA, or Ohio Housing Finance Agency. And we're working with Sean Carver there right now, who runs that agency, on an Appalachian carve-out. And so the problem that you have in housing and why it's less marketable in Appalachia is because you have these kind of firewalls around certain areas with the rental income of what they could charge for their places. So in Appalachia, it's significantly less than they can in Columbus. So return on investment for the developer is much higher. They're more geared towards, there's more of it's more advantageous for them to shoot for the areas where they're going to get higher rent. We are working now on an Appalachian carve-out, as well as allowing more return on investment in the Appalachian area. So I think you're going to see that roll out. We just saw the first 12 projects. We were very upset because none of them were positioned in Appalachia. I am told from Sean and the folks over at OFA that when the second half of that comes out by the end of this year, you're going to see a lot of Appalachian projects in that. So very good question. It's a big problem because of the rental income that you have. It's a less of a return. If someone could tell you could build a place here and charge $1,000 of rent per unit, or build a place here and you can only charge $500 per unit, and it costs the same to build them in both places, it's a business issue. So we're trying to figure out that rate of return to make that return a better investment for the developer. And we're working with the developers, we're working with OFA, and we're working with a lot of interested parties to try to make that happen. And I think later this year you'll see a solution to that problem.
Right.
What are the chances of Elon Musk's company Starlink being used for Wi-Fi?
Well, that's the other issue.
In Appalachia, because as I saw the hearings this summer, the senator from West Virginia was showing Gina Raimondo that SEC said they got service, but if you were there, they don't.
They don't. Yeah, they don't.
And you can drive a car around that has a satellite radio on it. You can get radio about anywhere.
Well, and I think there's some people in Appalachia that have Starlink. And see, it's another issue too with the state of Ohio investing all this money, I'm sitting here saying fiber is the best thing you can possibly get. There's a chance fiber is obsolete within the next couple of years because of these satellites that Elon Musk and people are taking advantage of. So it's a tricky political thing of what do you want to invest your money in. I know people personally that have Starlink in Appalachia, and they claim it works great, it's a cheap price, and they're getting great service at their house. Does anybody have Starlink in this room? Oh, here we go. All right, we got people in the room. Is it good, bad?
Great.
Great, good. So I think it's coming. The question is, yeah, it's already here. But you're right too on the other issue of broadband that I failed to mention is the FCC maps are so out of whack that they make no sense. We had a guy come and testify in front of the Finance Committee, probably many of you know from Jackson, Larry Kidd, and he sat in front of us and told me he didn't have broadband at his house. And in the public forum, and I told Larry I was going to do this, I didn't put him on the spot, but I held up the FCC map that said he has high-speed broadband at his house. Well, how can the FCC broadband map say that? How can you how can you manage a problem that you're not measuring properly? And one of the things we've asked Broadband Ohio to do is redo the maps specifically for the state of Ohio, because relying on the FCC maps in Washington, D.C. is not a worthwhile project. Their maps are so out of whack, and the majority of the time they'll show that everyone has high-speed broadband, when in reality they do not. Any other questions?
You mentioned that more available teacher pay.
Yes.
What would you like to see that?
Well, even so, from 20 to 35,000 just over the course of a couple of years is a big deal, and it's really a pass-through cost because you're requiring the school district. Now we fairly fund our schools now, but you're making the school district pay that cost. So it is a push on to the school district. But in reality, it's much higher than just, you think, well, that's just a $15,000 difference per year for a multitude of teachers, but it goes beyond that. Some teachers' contracts have it in there that they make 2 times what the minimum is, or 3 times, or a certain percentage of what the minimum is. So it changed the pay scale for everyone up and down. I can tell you from the teachers' organizations, they were absolutely thrilled that we were able to get it to that high. But there are other bills trying to get it to 50,000. The impact, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but the impact that has is multitudes of tens of hundreds of millions of dollars across the board, even though it just doesn't seem like that much. But again, you can't value education if you don't value teachers. I think it's a big deal. There's also a big move afoot that I think I can speak freely on in Appalachia. I think it's great to have choice for kids in schools. There's some kids that might not learn in a traditional setting. That's great. We have kids that are homeschooled. We have kids that go to parochial or Catholic schools, Christian schools. That's fine. But there is a big push from legislators in other areas, not so much Appalachia, to try to give all the money to the private schools, all the money to the parochial schools, and I think that is such a bad step in the wrong direction. The public schools do not get to choose who walks in that front door. They have to educate every kid that walks in. These schools get to pick and choose. I'm not against them. I think it's a good option for kids. But that fight is an ongoing battle every election cycle, and even as a battle this time around between the House and Senate. We have to support our public schools. I always say public schools, when you're talking politically, public schools is about like Congress. Most people, when you ask them their opinion of Congress, they'll say, I absolutely hate Congress, they do nothing, they're worthless. But my congressman's a really good guy. Public schools, you'll have people say, public schools are, they're indoctrinating kids and all this. But I love my public school, and by God, I'm going to that football game on Friday night. People tend to love their own public school, and maybe it has a worse perception because of things they see on the news or things they read about in the newspaper. But I can tell you, in the Appalachian delegation, we have a big support for our public schools. We realize it's the future of our workforce, it's the future of our state, and I think you're going to see a continued evaluation on public schools and making sure teachers, really the entire process of public schools, from the children all the way to the teacher, the administration, to the school building itself, has a really big impact and is getting a lot of funding in the state. Any other questions?
Jay, can you do one more thing? First of all,
Your question out, you already asked your question.
Twice they think I've gone to sleep, right?
Yes.
But Jay, I'd like you to do something for the group. We spent a lot of time this last 6 years trying to make sure that everybody here knows that they have a right and a responsibility to talk to you.
Absolutely.
And to talk to them. And we even had workshops here this week, like how do you advocate for yourself? And how do you go to Columbus? As an elected representative, can you give advice to the folks here about, how to talk to people about the problems? Because I'm surprised more people don't raise their hands
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
all right.
workshop.
People are shy, it's
But
politicians, they're scared.
Can you tell them, like, can you tell us?
Yeah,
How we do that?
and I think this is a valid point. If I could leave you with one very important thing today is, and I mentioned this early in my speech, we don't know what to work on if we don't hear from you. We aren't the boots on the ground doing what you do. And one of the great joys I have, which shouldn't be a joy, it's kind of sad, is I'll get somebody send me a message on Facebook and they'll give me their phone number, and within 30 seconds I call them. And you would not believe how flabbergasted people are, and then, oh my God, you called me. What? They just have such a low, I think, opinion, especially when you get to the state level, that you're calling someone, you're leaving a voicemail, and no one ever's going to hear it, no one's ever going to talk to you. I can tell you, and that's why I wanted to speak so highly of our Appalachian legislators, you have people that care. These are really local positions. You know, I am representing 4 counties, but I view it as a local position. If you call your legislator, you're going to get a call back, you're going to get an email back. And I'm here to tell you, if you have an issue in your organization, there is no way for Jay Edwards or Jason Stevens or any of the people that are in Appalachia representing you are going to know anything about it unless you pick up a phone. So it's not just our duty to represent, really the duty falls on you to let us know what to be working on. And it's so important that you join these organizations, you have a meeting with your legislator, they'll give you their cell phone number, they'll give you their personal email. Have conversations with your legislators to make sure they know what issues they're facing and that they're coming up with solutions. It's really easy to identify a problem like broadband. It's really hard to come up with a solution. There are probably people in this room that have solutions to problems that I couldn't even fathom, couldn't even begin to think about. If I don't have that from you, there's no way for me to do my job effectively. So even though I'm elected, even though I put my name on the ballot, even though it's what I do, it's in my job title, the duty is on you to make sure. It's easy to complain about stuff. It's hard to actually take action. You need to take action and make sure you join. You know, we're doing things right now very unique in our Appalachian delegation of having Appalachian organizations come up and talk to us. Last week we had John Kerry up, but we've had Appalachian organizations come and talk to 16, 18 legislators in the Appalachian region and get an opportunity to really talk about your issue or organization or what you're working on. And just the knowledge of what you're working on sparks all kinds of new ideas. So I strongly urge and would even say it is a duty of the position, it's the world we live in today. If you're not communicating with lawmakers to know what's going on in your life, you're not doing your job to the best of your ability. And no offense, but that's just the way in the world that we're living in today.
Thank you.
No other questions? None? 1, 2, 3? All right, thank you very much. Appreciate it.